Dan Perry here with another digital electronics tutorial for Dan on Tech. In this video we will look at inverters. Now the inverter is probably the simplest of the digital chips we'll look at, and with an inverter what we have is an input signal going into the inverter and then an output, so one input, one output, and what the inverter does is whatever the input is, the output will be inverted or the opposite. So if my input is a 1, typically represented by 5 volts, the output would be 0. If the input is a 0, my output would be 1. So it takes the input. So if the input again is a 0 and the output would be 1. If the input is 1, the output is 0. It merely flips or switches that. If we were to draw it as a timing diagram, well, if the top is the input and the top goes from 1 to 0 like that, and then back to 1. The bottom would start at 0, go up to 1, come over, and then come back down. So the inverter takes our input and it inverts it or switches it to the opposite value. Now the chip that we're going to be using for our inverters in labs is the 7404. And the 7404 chip comes in a number of different packaging as far as the numeric code that you'll see with the 7404, and mainly that deals with some manufacturers settings and things in it. There's LS, which is and a number of others. There's LS and a number of other things that may be in that name. Let me bring up this chip that's a 7404, and you can see here it's DM74LS04N, and all you need to really worry about for the purposes of this lab is the 7404 telling us that's the inverter. The other coding deals with the manufacturer, with power levels, with a number of other internal electronics, but ultimately the way it operates is the same. Now let's go in, and if we look at the pinouts of this 7404 chip, the 7404 has actually 6 inverters, and if I can increase this screenshot really, instead of an inverter, looks more like an AND gate. These are not supposed to be round. The symbol for the inverter is this triangle with a little dot indicating it inverts. And whenever you see a dot on a circuit, when you're looking at a schematic and you see the dot there, that says it's going to take the output and invert it. There are other chips that will do that. We have 6 devices. Pin 1 is an input, and pin 2 is an output of a device. Then 3 and 4 are input and output respectively of a separate device. 5 and 6 input and output as well. Now, each of these 6 devices are totally independent of each other. In other words, they do not affect the operation of the other. So anything you connect to the first device has no effect on the second or third or things unless you in your circuit connect them together. So we can connect those devices and use them independently. Just as an example, I could take an inverter, take the output of an inverter and put it into another inverter. And so if I put a 1 in, the output of the first inverter would give me a 0, and the output of the second would give me a 1, or exactly what I had before. And the way I could wire that up is my input signal could be connected to pin 1 of that chip, pin 1, the output connected to pin 2, and then that pin 2 could be connected to, say, pin 3, which would be the input of the next inverter, and I would get my output at pin 4. So I can connect those and use those together, and we will have some video later of actually connecting inverters together, or connecting inverters and seeing how they do operate. But the basic inverter, the inverter is probably our most basic circuit that we're going to work with in this series of tutorials. Well, thank you for watching this Dan on Tech video, and please subscribe to this playlist so you don't miss future videos. Please check out and subscribe to our other playlists on the Dan on Tech channel.